of the 11 GCBSS. Let me introduce myself. I'm Norazlan Alias from Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. I would also like to thank the conference organizer for giving me this opportunity to present my paper entitled Does Governance Structure Matter in Post-Spinoff? For my introductions, I would like to highlight two important announcements made by the Malaysian government as their commitment to enhance the corporate governance across the Malaysian firm. Firstly, this committee in 1998, and secondly, through the enhancement of Board of the Directors role as recommended in MCCG 2001 report. With that in mind, this study focuses on board structure or composition and ownership structure, and we'll see the effects of these two variables, that is board structure and ownership structure, on corporate activity. In this case, we focus on spin-off. For justifications, I've seen that less studies about board of directors and ownership structures effect on corporate restructuring. Although corporate restructuring can be to enhance its corporate governance mechanism through changes Therefore, this study main objective is to examine the effect of board of directors' role through board and corporate restructuring, specifically on spin-off, and to see the effect of this governance structure on firm performance. Why do we focus on board of directors? This is based on the role of board of directors, which is to decide on firm's corporate strategy, including corporate restructuring, to sustain. And as a result of this decision made by the board of directors, we could see several outcomes as a result of this restructuring, whether the restructuring would result to organizational restructuring, or financial restructuring, or portfolio restructuring. Studies on corporate restructuring can be seen in, for example, in Pullman 1999, in Beetle 1993, in Lai and Sudasana in 1997. Studies on board of directors structure on specific corporate activities such as spin-off can be seen in Feng and Au and Filman, where Feng and Au emphasis on the relation between CEO equity incentives and spin-off decisions, while Filman focuses on the role of directors, in which similar directors serving concurrently parent and spun-off firm on post-spin-off relationship between parent and spun-off firm and their performance. In my own study, I focus on the relations between governance structure and asset disposal, and find that larger board size has positive effect on performance on the following year of asset disposal. There are also studies on board of directors structure in Hanifa and Hudayb and Yormak. For data and methodology, this study uses yearly data of firms listed on the main board of Bursa Malaysia and announced completed spin-off for the period of 1994 to 2015. This study relies on Bloomberg and annual reports sources of data. Originally, there were 66 firms announced and completed the spin-off exercise. However, the final sample comprises only 22 spun-off firms with complete publicly available financial data. It is also important to note that this study also excludes firms in regulated industry, such as financial industry, and those with incomplete data. This study also follows DIDMA to collect data for 3 years following the spin-off to capture the post-ante characteristic of the spin-off. The data includes return on asset as dependent variable, while independent variable, such as board size, independent directors ratio, to represent board of directors structure, board of directors ownership to represent ownership structure, and debt ratio to represent the firm's capital structure policy. We run a regression model as follows, where return on asset as the dependent variable and board size, independent director ratio, board ownership, debt ratio, and firm size as the dependent, together with interaction between all the governance structures used in this study and debt ratio. Our results show that on yearly basis, we find that only board of directors ownership and interaction between independent directors ratio and debt ratio and board of directors ownership and debt ratio show significant effect on performance in year 3 following to the spin-off. In fixed effect model, we find that only board size show significant effect on performance. for interaction, we find that independent director ratio and board of directors ownership and debt ratio show significant effect on performance. As a conclusion, this study recommends less board of directors ownership but higher ratio of independent directors, respectively, to optimize its capital structure policy, as reflected in firms' debt ratio following a spin-off. In other words, a decrease in board of directors ownership and an increase in independent directors ratio would negate risks associated with increasing debt in firm's capital structure of a spun-off firm. This finding also complements Dittmer, who argued that the parent firm allocates debt to the spun-off firm by way of reassigning the debt to the new entity or by allowing the new entity to issue new debt, and therefore it reveals how board of directors structure influences a spin-off entity initial capital structure policy. That's all for my presentation. Thank you very much.